Yeah, we can't miss these moments. Mayor, you had an extraordinary day today.
Okay. This deserves a lot more attention, and we are going to make sure that it gets a lot more attention. But because we are about 3 hours late ending what should have been a relatively short council meeting, never know. It's not getting the attention it deserves. April is National Poetry Month, and a lot of folks know that I'm a fan of poetry. I really enjoy poetry, and I particularly like public poetry where you have the opportunity to hear the spoken word. Poetry on the page can be interesting and exciting and transformative, but poetry that is shared, poetry that you can discuss, poetry that you can hear is much more exciting. And I've been working with Dr. Lawson, our library director, for some time on how we can better expose Houstonians to what poetry can bring. Several months ago, I asked Dr. Lawson and her team to investigate the possibility of having an official Poet Laureate for the city of Houston. I don't know if in the far reaches of the history of Houston we've had one, but we certainly have not had a Poet Laureate to our knowledge. Why would you want a Poet Laureate? Well, even if you don't care about poetry, words still resonate. And if you don't care about poetry, you just haven't heard the right poem. The Houston Public Library, working with a local partner, Public Poetry, already hosts monthly poetry readings at some libraries across the city, and these have turned out to be some of our most successful and well-attended library programs. But poetry is also a very vibrant art form that is alive and well today, and there are some amazing groups around the city that perform poetry, and for young people, poetry slams are an increasingly hot activity. But in order to create an official Poet Laureate for the city of Houston, we had to establish a process. So Dr. Lawson and her library team found that several other major cities across the country have their own Poet Laureates. So we decided to take the best from those processes and then tweak those processes to come up with our own. We compiled a wonderful team of volunteers to create the steps to designate a Poet Laureate and to vet the nominees. And I'm happy to say that through that process, which was a surprisingly competitive process, there were a lot of really excellent candidates, we have selected the official Poet Laureate of the city of Houston. I'm rolling her name out today, but the important element I want you to recognize is you're going to be hearing from her over the course of the next year. The Poet Laureate of the city of Houston is Gwendolyn Zepeda. Gwen is a native Houstonian, actually born right here in downtown, and is a product of local public schools, Hamilton Middle School and Reagan High School. She has an English degree from the University of Texas at Austin, and is an accomplished novelist, blogger, and poet. Some know her best from her 3 acclaimed novels, but she does write beautiful poetry that is sometimes stark, always well crafted, often Houston-centric, which is exciting to me. But what really moved her ahead of the rest of the nominees was 2 things for me. One is that it is possible to be a poet, to explore poetry, to be active in the world of words, and still have a real job. It's also possible to explore the world of words and to be a poet, and that be your job. But it is finally possible to take your own love of words and poetry and move it out into the rest of the city. I wanted a poet laureate who could touch communities that may not realize that they love poetry, may not realize they hear poetry, and ignite interconnected spheres that will spread this love of poetry across the city. And someone who can, by her own presence and reading her own work, get people interested and engaged. As our first Poet Laureate, Ms. Zepeda will be charged with working with the public library system to develop a community outreach project to share the art of poetry with non-traditional audiences, hold community-based readings and workshops, and provide opportunities for Houstonians of all walks of life to create and publish their own poetry. I understand that she's going to do a poetry blog as well to get us a mechanism for us to communicate with each other as we explore poetry. Through the work of the Houston Arts Alliance, she will actually be provided with a small honorarium of $5,000 to serve as the city's Poet Laureate. So she's being paid to do this work that I know she loves. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Gwendolyn Zepeda, Houston's